Hey everybody, this is Emily with Snake Discovery, and so far in our Breeding North American Colubrids 101 series, we have taught you how to brumate your colubrids and how to wake them up in the spring, how to pair them, and how to incubate the eggs. Well, in today's part 6, which will be the final video of this series, we're going to teach you, or at least show you, how we take care of hatchling snakes once they start pipping. The incubation phase is probably the most antsy stage of breeding snakes because you just can't wait for those babies to start hatching. But anywhere from day 55 to day 65, even sometimes day 70, it's not an exact science, but you just kind of have to start keeping an eye on your clutches of eggs until that exciting day comes where they start pipping. We typically start checking the eggs on day 50, give or take, although this year we had a clutch start hatching on day 45 for some reason. So you can start checking no more than like once, maybe twice a day when you know they're getting close to hatching. Usually with the North American Colubrids, like what we've experienced anyway, once a baby has their nose poking out of the egg, it takes about 12 to 24 hours and then they'll come out the rest of the way. They don't do it all at once. I have another couple babies hissing at me here. They don't do it all at once. They stick their nose out and they just rest after cutting open that slice, and then at a later time they'll actually emerge from their egg. Now that it's been about 24 hours, we're going to go in and see what babies have pipped and which ones are out and which ones haven't even pipped yet. Now it's up to you whether or not you cut the eggs open. Babies should have a well-developed egg tooth in order to come out of their eggshell and slice it open from the inside, but occasionally the egg tooth isn't very developed, or it just isn't even existent at all. For those snakes, they risk getting trapped inside of their egg and drowning in their own fluid. In the wild, natural selection takes place, and only those individuals that have a good or well-developed egg tooth will make it and live and grow and reproduce into further generations. But in captivity, they're not going to be living like in wild conditions. They're not experiencing or being exposed to predators or lack of food or harsh climatic conditions. So it's debatable whether or not you should cut your eggs, but Ed and I feel that since they're being kept in captivity as pets anyway, it does no harm to cut the eggs and help them out a little bit. The egg tooth, being an actual tooth, will fall off within the first few hours, and sometimes you can see them flick their tongue, and when they stick their tongue out, the tooth is there, but when they suck it back in, it's gone. Like, that's how quickly that egg tooth falls off when they first hatch. But without further ado, let's check out all the babies from this clutch. As you can see, we have 3 big, beautiful baby bull snakes out, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 more that have already pipped, and that leaves us with 3 that have not pipped quite yet. But these eggs are huge, my goodness! And the babies are feisty. They think they are anyway. What we recommend doing, at least for the first day that the babies have started coming out, is leave them in here with the rest of the eggs, because the sensation of them slithering over the other eggs will help tell the babies on the inside that it's time to hatch. Your siblings have already hatched, they're ahead of the game, and it's time for you to catch up and come out of that egg. But at this point, since we're going to cut them anyway, we are going to take these siblings out, because they're not going to help. Okay, and now it's much more peaceful. For the cutting stage, I like to use just a small handheld razor blade and 2 sets of tweezers. That way your fingers don't get in the way. And for the ones that have already pipped, I mean, if you want, you can kind of peek inside, make sure the baby looks good. Oh my gosh, you are adorable. Just make sure they're fully formed, and this is the time where you can peek and see what genetics they have. So if you're going for albinos or white-sideds or what have you, now is when you'll finally learn what they are. Hi, cutie. You've got your little nose sticking out too. Can I get a tongue flick? Nope, no tongue flick. Often what we'll do to make sure the babies on the inside are good and healthy is we'll do a poke test, where basically we just take a metal set of feeding tongs and we gently touch the baby on the inside and just make sure that they're responding to that touch. It tells us that they are alive and they're responding well. Something that you won't notice until you breed snakes for the first time is there is a very unique smell or odor. Not a bad smell, it's a wonderful smell. At least I've learned to associate it as being a great smell with babies hatching. It's really unique. Have you noticed that too? Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is a smell, a good smell to babies hatching. We know that these 3 eggs are good. The last one to just verify is this little baby. Oh, he's flicking from inside of the egg. That is so cute. Well, I mean, if he's flicking his tongue.
He should be good.
Yeah, we don't have to do a poke test on him. Well, this is an overachiever. He cut slits on the bottom part of his shell and on the other side before...
He didn't like that side.
Apparently not. Now, one thing you don't want to do, though, is reach in and pull the babies out. You have to let them come out at their own rate. All you have to do to help them, if anything, is just cut a little slit or window into the egg. And that's what we're going to do with these 3 remaining big eggs in here. And for this, since the baby will be resting on the bottom of the egg, it is perfectly safe to cut a little window at the top of the egg. Make sure you have a nice sharp razor blade though, otherwise it's going to be a little awkward cutting that hole. And cut, of course, very shallow. The first thing you're going to look for is what color the goop is coming out of the egg. You want a nice clear color like that. Technically, this is amniotic fluid. I just call it baby snake goop. And something that I've started doing... Oh, and by the way, if you see a little bit of red, chances are you didn't hit the baby as long as you're cutting very shallow. There are veins running along the inside of the shell, so it's normal to nick a couple of those and you're not hurting the baby at all. And something I've started doing is actually cutting a C-shape hole so that it's like a flap that can close after we peek inside. So ready? Here's our baby. Baby! Wow, there's lots of veins still attached to you. That's pretty cool to see, actually. Let's do a poke test. Oh, yep, responding. We're good. We're good. That's all we need to see right now. We're going to set you back in place and look at the other 2. Big eggs, if they're like considerably larger than the rest, can be a hit or miss. Sometimes that baby's just big. Sometimes it's twins. That's never happened to us, though. And sometimes the baby passed away during development. Oh, baby! Oh, you're way
down in there.
Yeah, you're way down there. Actually, I need this. Oh, he's responding. All right, he looks good.
All right.
Hard to see on camera, but yeah, he's good. All right, last egg. Sometimes little windows like this will develop too, and that doesn't seem to harm the baby on the inside at all. Goop looks good. When you do this, just accept the fact that your hands are gonna get pretty messy. And another baby! Aw, you're so cute too. Let's test you out.
Yeah, definitely. Away from that.
Yeah, we look great. Cool, so all of these babies are alive and well. If you're unsure of which babies to hold back, if you are planning on holding back some babies from a clutch, my recommendation is to hold back the ones, I mean, if color isn't a deciding factor at all, hold back the ones that have cut the slits on their own, because that way you can promote better egg tooth development in future generations. Oh, I love the spit bubbles. Can you flick your tongue? Flick your tongue, little flick. Oh, there's a baby flick. Can we get another? Oh, there's a good flick. You can see his egg tooth still.
Can you?
Yeah. The egg tooth isn't like a triangular pointy tooth. It is very sharp, but it's more credit card shaped than like tooth shaped, we've found. Just sticks out right there in the middle. It looks like a little buck tooth. All right, well now that all the babies have been cut, we are going to put the siblings back in there with them to encourage them to come out. I'm sorry, your siblings have attitudes. Man, these babies are big.
Yeah, they are.
That's insane. Here you go. So now you want to leave them in the incubator for another 24 hours. Put the lid back on, of course, so that they don't get out and to hold humidity in. And after 24 hours, we'll show you how to set up the baby bins. Now that all of your babies are out, you can reserve some well-deserved oogling time. Oh, look at the babies! Oh my gosh. So we have admittedly left them in here for a couple of days because we've just been crazy busy. So if you have to do that too, you don't have to, well then, you don't have to move the babies into their baby bins right away. In fact, we like to let them sit. Well, okay, now we're all waking up. We like to let them sit for about 24 hours anyway, just to give them some time to kind of settle in and figure out balance and movement and all that, even though theoretically they should be good to go right away. If you look close, you'll see that some of them, actually most of them, already have blue eyes. It's a little early. They're only about 3 days old now, and they're already in blue, but that's all right. They're just ahead of the game. This is also a good time to make sure that all of the eggs have been hatched out of, and all the babies look good. So you can give them each kind of a look over here, make sure there aren't any kinks in their spine, and I mean, of course, you gotta be like, oh, you're so fierce if you've got bull snakes, because they think they are quite scary. If you're breeding hognoses, they'll probably play dead on you, and each species is going to be a little bit different in how they react to humans for the first time. You are a super sassy one, aren't you? Yes, you are. It's okay. I'm just a person. I promise. I'm not a predator that's going to eat you. Oh, I've got a flattened out head here. Oh, you're so scary. Oh, we're doing long tongue flicks too. Here, I've got to pick you up. Ow! It looks like all of these babies are perfectly healthy, so I'll just show you next how we set up baby bins for hatchlings. We like using our revision rack for babies because the bins are really easy to clean, but it's not like you have to use this brand, it's just what we like to use. And it looks like it can only fit 6 in frame, so we're just going to set up 6 on camera, and then I'll just set up the rest afterwards. First, your substrate should be something that's easy to clean and monitor droppings with. So I like to use paper towels. They're easy to take out, and after the first couple of meals, that's when I'll consider switching them to more of a digging substrate like aspen fibers in the case of the bull snakes, but it's really up to you what substrate you use. Just keep in mind cleanliness, since you'll have a lot of babies you'll have to take care of and clean on a pretty regular basis, as well as the food sticking to the substrate. I like to feed them directly on this, especially the first few times while they get used to everything, and just being able to feed them straight on the paper towels makes things much easier because the food doesn't stick to anything that way. Next, since at least part of your enclosure is going to be heated for the babies, in our case it's the backs of these bins. This is the front handle here just to put it in perspective. We recommend, just like with any setup, putting a cave in the back so that they have a hide to feel comfortable in while they're warm. But in our case with these vision bins, they're a little skinny for our normal baby hides to fit in even sideways. So instead what we're doing, since we're still kind of trying to figure out a good hide that fits back here, we're just using PVC tubes. It's a good hide. The other babies seem to be using it just fine and they like them. So we're putting one of these in each of them. We're also using like little half logs for the babies, just something for them to feel secure in. Next, just like taking care of any snake, we also like to use a lot of enrichment in the bins. In this case, these are all pieces of plants that were donated by a couple fans of ours actually. A lot of these were like the pieces that would break off of the plants at a Michael's craft store, so it's a good way to reuse these instead of them ending up in a landfill. Some breeders don't use any enrichment at all. They just have a hide in the back and a water dish up front. The babies will survive with that minimalistic setup. It's just a difference of opinion. We prefer to use the enrichment because we find that at least our bull snakes and all the North American species we breed, they do like to check them out and slither over these. So that's just our personal opinion. And as far as the decor goes, you can get super creative. You can use PVC pipes, you can use the PVC joints that you find at hardware stores. Really anything that's easy to clean and disinfect is great to use for a lot of baby snakes. Next up, the water dishes. For these, we just use PVC caps that are flat on the bottom. They do sell caps like at Menards and Home Depot that are rounded. Those obviously don't work very well as water dishes, but you can find these if you look hard enough. And they're dishwasher safe, which is great. For very small species, we like to use this shallower one because it's easier for baby garter snakes and baby hognoses to reach that water. But for the bull snakes that we're setting up today, we're going to use the deeper ones because they're bigger snakes even as hatchlings. They can reach the water just fine, and they're less likely, because bull snakes like to move all around, the bull snakes I find are less likely to take the edge of their paper towel and pull it into one of these deeper cups, whereas if I use the shallow one for a bull snake, they take this, they push it down, and it soaks up all the water. So that's just a little trick we've learned. Unfortunately, I'm too short for those deeper ones, so I guess for today we're gonna use these, but I'm not gonna use them very long. I have to go buy a couple more of those. We're almost done with the baby setup, at least what we do for our baby snakes. If you look closely, you'll see that everything in these setups is smooth. You have your smooth PVC, smooth plants, smooth-sided bin, and smooth plastic water dish. This one's a bit of an exception because we found this rough log, but for everything else, there's nothing rough for a snake to rub up against to shed its skin. So that's why we take actually rocks from our front landscaping, we clean them, we disinfect them, and then we put them inside each bin. We also strategically place these on the other side of the water dish because this helps hold down the other side of the paper towel. We find if we put this in the back, the snakes like to push and move around all the paper towels up here, which pushes everything back here. So the rock also helps in keeping everything in place. Now we get to finally play with the baby snakes as we put them all in their baby bins. Oh, you guys are so cute. You smell so good. It's unique. It's not bad. It's a good smell. Like puppy breath. Okay, we have a baby in each bin. We miscounted though. We still need to set up 2 more after we're done shooting this. And 1 more over here.
One over there.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to forget about you. Now it's just a matter of waiting until they shed, so that they're still absorbing the yolk from their eggs, so they're not going to have any inclination whatsoever to eat until they shed their skin. That's a good indicator that they are finished absorbing that yolk and they're ready for their first meal. Garter snakes and hognose snakes, on the other hand, tend to shed like immediately after they're born / hatched. Garter snakes are live bears, which is why I say that. But bull snakes, it takes about a week. So now we're just going to slide these into the baby rack and wait until they're done shedding. The only other thing I'd recommend doing at this point while you wait for them to shed is to mist down the enclosures a bit. This will help keep the humidity levels up to help them shed. And a little trick is to use RO water, because then it won't develop calcium buildup on the bins. It'll dry completely clear. These babies are all about a week old now, and as expected, they've all made a huge mess of all of their bins, even before they've eaten their first meal. They're also extra sassy. I actually have one that I had to separate into a timeout bin because he was so sassy. It kind of looks like I may have to do it to another one right here, though. Oh my goodness, okay. You are so sassy. Wow, look at you wind up to the camera. You are super angry. Oh my goodness, that is a scary camera. Okay. Well, I might have to put a couple of these particularly ornery ones in the timeout bin, but the first thing I'm going to do before offering the first meal, which is today, is clean up all these bins. You are so ow. Sometimes you get baby bull snakes that are just so worked up because they're scared of people and haven't been handled yet, that when they hiss, they pretty much honk. Like that. Buddy, it's okay. I know, I'm a scary person. I promise we're not here to hurt you. It's okay. It's okay. Let me clean your bin and then we'll feed you your first meal. How about that? Does that sound okay? Okay. To clean the bins for the first time, I'm not necessarily doing a full cleaning. Some of the babies you'll notice here have already had their first poop, which is basically just from them absorbing the rest of their yolk from their egg, but not all of them have pooped yet. However, those that haven't are probably due to poop soon, so I'm going to reuse their paper towels just a little while longer instead of replacing them altogether. I'm essentially just tidying up their bins so they look nice while I offer them their first meal. This includes removing their first shed and replacing the water as necessary. Now that all the bins are clean, we are going to offer them their first food. Now the reason why I like to clean it, you know what, if you're just gonna hiss, come here. You can be a part of this too. Oh, we're super angry. Yeah, it's okay. If you have ornery babies like we tend to hatch, or if you're breeding bull snakes, as long as you just handle them for a couple minutes, they tend to calm right down. And now we're going to feed them. This is the last stage that we're going to cover in our breeding series, is just feeding babies. They'll probably be scared of you the first time because they don't know what a human is, so I like to approach them very slowly. Baby bull snakes can be fed a fuzzy right off the bat, whereas a baby rat snake or fox snake, which I guess is a rat snake, will only be big enough for a pinky mouse. So I'm just letting him smell it a bit here and kind of calm down. Do you want to eat it? No, he's interested. To convince them to take their first meal, it's kind of a combination of letting them inspect the food item and maybe take it on their own, as well as gently touching their lips with the food, and finally moving it around a little bit. Sometimes that just scares them though. And if all else fails, like with this guy, I'm just going to leave it in there with him. So now we're going to go through the rest of the bins and see which ones we can get to eat. Sometimes they strike at it, and then when it's in their mouth because they bit it, they just eat it afterwards. Do you want a mouse? Oh, see, just like that. They'll hiss at it, and then they're like, oh, that was food, I guess. I suppose I'll start eating it. Ha, you thought you were being tough, and then I tricked you into eating. Here's a fun fact. A bull snake's head stamp is like a fingerprint. They're unique to each snake. No two are alike. Alright, he took his, and we are big fans of frozen thawed food. So we're going to try to get all of them to eat frozen thawed fuzzies. And with bull snakes anyway, 90% of the time they're going to take it on their first try. If a baby is pretty shy and hiding like this one, you can sometimes just gently touch them with the mouse, and that'll make them come up to investigate, and then hopefully you can get them to eat. There you go. What's this? Sorry, his tail is buzzing. Oh, you struck it, and you're gonna eat it too? It's food. Oh, he spat it out. I might just leave this one in here with him, and he'll probably eat it on his own. You'll find that some of the babies like it if you wiggle it or touch their nose with it, and some just prefer to be left alone with it. Just play around with different techniques and see what works for each snake. One thing you want to keep an eye on though are those tongue flicks. If you see a lot of quick tongue flicks in quick succession, then they're pretty interested in the food. There you go. Aw, you're a polite eater. So yeah, I'm just going to go through all of the babies, try to figure out how to get each one to eat its first meal, and those that don't want anything, I'm just going to put, like this one right here, I'm just going to put the mouse in with them and push them back into the rack. Leave them alone for about 20 minutes, and at least with bull snakes, chances are it'll be gone after that. With other snakes though, like with hognose snakes or rat snakes, they can be a little bit trickier to get to eat for the first time, so you may have to try some other techniques to get them going, or they're just not ready right away. They don't have as big of an appetite as, say, like a bull snake does. The reason why I like to clean the bins first is because then I can just leave the food in with the snake if needed and leave them alone. With bull snakes, they'll generally not care if their bin was just cleaned and they'll eat afterwards anyway. However, with some species of North American Colubrids, like say hognose snakes, which are easily stressed and therefore don't want to eat, the whole experience of having their bin cleaned may make them less inclined to take that food. So for those species or those certain individual snakes that get stressed out pretty easily and therefore don't want to eat, I'd recommend cleaning the bin first, waiting a couple of hours, and then offering them food after they've calmed down a bit. Man, you are sassy. But there you have it. That's how you deal with the exciting process of eggs hatching and how to take care of those newly hatched babies. Hopefully yours aren't as sassy as mine, but if you breed bull snakes, you'll probably run into this. You basically just have to handle them for a few minutes to make them realize that you're not a predator, you're not going to hurt them, and then they generally calm down. Ow, don't just sit there and eat my wrist. What's wrong with you? My goodness. This will likely be our last video in our Breeding North American Colubrids 101 series, so I hope you've enjoyed all of these videos. We started back last fall teaching you how to set up snakes for brumation, how to take care of them in brumation, wake them up, take care of the parents afterwards, pairing them, getting eggs, and now finally what you've been working towards for almost a year now, having baby snakes. Of course, there are multiple different ways to do this. This is just how we breed North American Colubrids, and honestly, we're tweaking our formula every year. So do lots of research, don't just go by what we do, and figure out what works best for the snakes you're trying to breed. Now, for those of you who are interested in the genetics of these babies, since we didn't talk about them a whole lot, and how I'm a little bit disappointed that they're all normals, we're going to talk about that next. Today's clutch was brought to you by Mr. Wilson and our axanthic female bull snake. The female here is just axanthic, she doesn't have any other hets or any other genes going on, but Mr. Wilson here is a hypoalbino, or in other words, a hibino, and he is het whiteside, and we were told that he's also het axanthic. So by pairing him with her, probability-wise, about half of their babies should have been axanthic. And we also wanted to see if she was het albino or het hypo or something like that, just as like maybe a surprise het. It happens a lot with bull snakes. Unfortunately, since all of the babies turned out normal, it means that Mr. Wilson was not het axanthic, and she wasn't het anything else. So we have a bunch of normal looking babies from this clutch, which is kind of disappointing. However, the babies are, and Mr. Wilson was too hard to hold with the axanthic, so I'm just gonna hold her for the rest of this video. But the genetics of the parents at least mean that the babies are triple het, or heterozygous. That means they carry the genetic trait for hypo and albino from their dad, and axanthic from their mom. They also have a 50% chance of being het whiteside as well, from the fact that Mr. Wilson, their dad, is het whiteside. So although we weren't able to prove him out, or we disproved that he is het axanthic, at least we know now, and we still have some really big, healthy babies that are genetic powerhouses for future breeding projects. Sorry, lots of genetic talk. I know a couple people might find it interesting though, so I didn't want to skip out on that. Thank you everybody for watching today's Breeding 101 series video. This, again, will be the last one of this series, so we'll have to find another 101 series to do in the future for you. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, thank you to our amazing Patreon backers for all of your support, and to everyone spending their time here with us watching our videos and learning about snakes. Thank you everybody, and we'll see you next time. I guess I could say, usually with, or I can't get a boom right on camera. Usually with the North American, bless you. That's a pretty one. Oh, goodness.
Really?
Do we want to talk about genetics? Ow, your teeth actually made contact with my skin. Oh, we're doing long tongue flicks too. Here, I've got to pick you up. Ow. Ow, quit it. Now in the back of the, yeah, of course. She's gonna squawk, and that's right. In the backs of your baby bins, that's where at least ours are heated from the back, so we're going to use the deeper ones because the babies can reach the food. Well. Oh my goodness. Wow, you're so angry. This will likely be the last video in our Breeding North American Colubrids 101 series, so you just turned your head and started chewing on me. You weirdo, are you hungry? Do you want food? Wow, you are sassy. You guys woke up on the wrong side of the bed today, my goodness. It's okay, I promise. Don't just sit there and bite my finger. Wow, you guys are so angry. Calm down, calm down. I'm trying to get you off my finger. Dude, okay. You go over here, and you go over there. You're like scrunching yourself up. That can't be comfortable. Here. There, I'm done.